Now let's take a look at storage recommendations according to the type of support, and then according to the type of paint. Generally speaking, it's always best to store like objects together. Objects with the same type of paint, the same size, or the same surface material, rather than intermixing them. Works on paper can be stored flat or horizontally and stacked. In fact, in my opinion, it's preferred so that gravity doesn't promote a bend. Paper naturally allows air penetration, so if paintings in watercolor, tempera, or a dry medium are executed on paper, they should fare well stacked. I've stacked my watercolor paintings for years, and they appear perfectly fine. That said, if you want to follow what is considered best practice, then you should lay a piece of interleaving paper or acid-free mat board between each sheet. I decided to go ahead and do this for my own work. And you can see here that I placed archival tissue between each painting. It's not necessary, but it does seem safer. Interleaving paper is a thin piece of archival paper meant to safely separate works of art, prints, and photographs. It prevents abrasion, moisture, and color transfer. Interleaving papers can be in the form of a paper, tissue, film, or some kind of synthetic material, and are usually made in such a way as to resist sticking to the dried paint under normal circumstances. Some of the main forms of interleaving paper are archival paper, which is an opaque archival grade paper, and that works well for photographs and prints. There's archival tissue paper. It's slightly translucent archival grade tissue, and that's usually good for prints, works on paper, and some photographs. And then you have archival glassine, which is a smooth, translucent, glossy paper that resists grease, water, and air, and it does not have a static charge. So it's good for prints, etchings, watercolors, charcoal drawings, pastels, and photographs that don't use gelatin. Another option is silicone release paper or mylar. This is opaque, silicone-covered paper, and nothing sticks to it, so it's a good option for oils and acrylics. Lastly, there's mylar polyester film or soft-wrap Tyvek or polyethylene. These are considered unchanging over time, and they range from clear to opaque. They're synthetic materials. The mylar version could possibly cause some moisture condensation if there's a temperature drop. So in that case, you could simply add archival tissue between the art and the mylar, and then don't seal it to prevent that from happening. Tyvek should be specifically made for art conservation, and this material is good for photographs, prints, and art on paper. The products are not recommended for friable or loose art mediums. Now, a word about glassine paper. I've used glassine in the past, and I really like it. It's a little bit like wax paper in texture, but without the wax. Unfortunately, it gets very mixed reviews from experts. After reading a wide variety of opinions, I would conclude that it is safe to use until it starts to show signs of aging. Then the paper should be replaced. For a point of reference, I've had archival glassine sheets for probably over 10 years now and haven't noticed any change. But note that glassine is not recommended for print forms that use gelatin. It is recommended for loose particle works, as I mentioned, such as pastel and charcoal, due to the lack of static charge. In general, interleaving is very useful for protecting dried paintings, and is also very handy for protecting artwork when shipping, which we'll discuss later. Another precaution when working with paper is to avoid using metal clips or sticky notes long-term on your work. Metal left in place over time can eventually rust and mark the surface of the paper. Sticky notes can eventually leave residual tack. Cool, dry storage is ideal for works on paper, but a normal house environment is fine as long as the temperature and humidity extremes are avoided. For your best pieces, Clear plastic archival mylar envelopes or archival map folders are often recommended for storage, and these can be stored on a shelf or in an acid-free storage box. Now, what about stretched canvas or hard surfaces like board or panel? Well, these are ideally stored upright or vertically. If it's in the form of a finished painting, it's best to allow airflow between the pieces. The same is true of framed work that isn't hung. Hard surfaces have some weight to them, and technically, if leaning against another piece, it could create a mark or put pressure on the adjacent surface. In particular, when handling a painting on stretched canvas, be careful that your fingers don't put pressure on the canvas and unknowingly create dents or protrusions. If a painting on this surface has become slack, use the stretcher keys to restore the tension, but be careful not to overstretch the canvas. In the next lecture, let's look at each type of paint and examine storage considerations specific to each one, beginning with watercolor.